I didn't lose her to love. I lost her to timing. And I let her think she won. The printer didn't jam, it just gave me divorce papers. Fast, final, no warning. My name is Eli Granger, 49 years old, U.S. Army warrant officer with 25 years of logistics under my belt. I'd seen plenty of surprises in my career. This wasn't one of them. The FedEx envelope sat on my desk at Camp Arifja, Kuwait. Standard white. Professional label. Rachel's handwriting on the return address. Neat, controlled. Like everything else about her. Inside, divorce papers. Clean copies, already filled out, one yellow sticky note attached. Let's keep this clean. That was it. No phone call, no explanation, no warning shot across the bow. Just paperwork and a polite request to disappear quietly. I set the papers down and stared at the Kuwait desert through my office window. Sand stretched to the horizon, flat and unforgiving. Kinda like marriage, I guess. 22 years together. She'd waited until I was 7,000 miles away to pull the trigger. Smart woman. Always was. Most guys would have called, screamed, demanded answers, maybe caught the next transport home to fight it out face to face. That's what she expected. That's what she was counting on. I signed the papers instead. Every page, every line. Clean signature, just like she wanted. But here's the thing about logistics. You don't move cargo without an inventory list. In marriage, that's just cargo with feelings attached. Before sealing the envelope, I walked down to the base legal office. Staff Sergeant Morrison was on duty, same guy who'd helped me with my will deployment. Need something notarized? I said. Sure thing, Chief. What do you got? I handed him 3 pages I'd typed up that morning. Complete list of marital assets, bank accounts, property values, investment portfolios, pension details, even the dog's vaccination records. Everything we owned together, itemized and categorized like a supply manifest. Divorce? Morrison asked, scanning the pages. Asset documentation, I said. Standard precaution. He notarized each page. Official seal, military timestamp, witness signature. All properly documented, just like the Army taught me. I slipped the asset list behind Rachel's divorce papers and sealed the envelope. She wanted no noise. I gave her one more piece of paper she'd probably forget to notice. The FedEx clerk took the envelope with a smile. This going out today, Chief? Express delivery, I said. Priority. 2 days later, I got a text from Rachel. Thanks for making this easy. I didn't respond. What was there to say? But I did make one phone call. To Lloyd Jennings, my old Army buddy turned private investigator back in Virginia. Lloyd had gotten out 3 years before me and started his own security consulting business. Lloyd, it's Eli. Hey brother, how's Kuwait treating you? Fine. Listen, I need a favor. Small surveillance job back home, standard rates. What kind of surveillance? Property monitoring, bank activity, just keeping an eye on things while I'm deployed. Lloyd paused. I could hear papers shuffling in the background. This about Rachel? Maybe. Another pause, longer this time. Eli, I should tell you something. Tell me when I get back. 3 weeks. This is important, man. So is this phone call costing me $2 a minute. Handle the surveillance. We'll talk when I'm stateside. I hung up before he could argue. 3 weeks left on rotation. 3 weeks to finish my job and head home to whatever mess Rachel had made of our life. She thought silence meant surrender. She thought distance meant defeat. 25 years in the Army teaches you patience. It teaches you planning. And it teaches you that the best operations are the quiet ones. The ones nobody sees coming. Rachel wanted a clean break. Fair enough. I'd give her exactly what she asked for. 3 weeks later, I stood in my own driveway and couldn't get inside my house. New locks, brass ones, still shiny from the hardware store. The key I'd carried for 15 years might as well have been a bottle opener. I walked the perimeter like I was surveying enemy territory. Everything looked the same from the outside. Same white shutters, same flower boxes Rachel had insisted on, same mailbox, except my name wasn't on it anymore. Just R. Granger in neat black letters, like I'd never existed. The neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, watched me from her kitchen window. 60-something busybody who'd known us since we moved in. She disappeared when I waved. I called Rachel. Straight to voicemail. "This is Rachel. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." No mention of being married. No, we're not available. Just Rachel, singular. Through the front window, I could see the living room. Clean. Organized. All our wedding photos gone from the mantel. The military commendations I'd hung by the fireplace. Vanished. Like 22 years had been edited out with whiteout. I walked around back to check the garage. Door was unlocked, probably an oversight. Inside, my workbench sat exactly where I'd left it. Tools organized by size, just how I liked them, but Mac's food bowl sat empty in the corner. Clean as a whistle. Not even a water stain. She didn't give it away out of kindness, just erased it like she erased me. I opened the trash can next to the workbench. Mostly empty, but something caught my eye at the bottom. Half a wedding photo, torn right down the middle. Rachel's smile survived. My face didn't. 20 minutes later, I was at First National Bank. Same branch where we'd opened our joint account 12 years ago. Same teller who always asked about my deployments. "I need to check my account balance," I said, sliding my debit card across the counter. She ran the card, frowned, ran it again. "I'm sorry, Mr. Granger. You're not authorized on this account." "It's a joint account. My name's on it." "Not according to our records. The account was converted to individual ownership 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks. Right when she filed the papers. "Who authorized that?" "Your spouse. She had power of attorney documentation." I kept my voice level. "I'd like to speak with the manager." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Jim Bradley, branch manager. Guy I'd known for 8 years. He looked uncomfortable. "Jim, what happened to my accounts?" "Eli, I'm sorry. Your wife presented proper documentation, power of attorney signed and notarized. We had to comply." "Where's the money?" "Transferred to a personal trust account. All legal, all legal." That seemed to be Rachel's favorite phrase these days. Next stop, insurance office. Same story. Coverage terminated by spouse with POA. Pension office had a letter waiting for me. Full transfer requested, already processed. She'd been thorough. Military level thorough. I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the bar where Lloyd and I used to grab beers when we were both stationed at Fort Lee. He was waiting in our old booth, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse." I sat down across from him. "Tell me what you couldn't say on the phone." Lloyd stared at his beer bottle, peeling the label with his thumbnail. Classic Lloyd nervous habit. "She came to me first, Eli. About 6 weeks ago." "For what?" "Surveillance on you." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Wanted me to dig up dirt. Gambling debts, affairs, anything that would help in a divorce. And I took the job, took her money." His voice got quiet. "Half up front, standard rate." I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence gets you more than questions. I figured it was routine. Divorce work pays the bills, you know. But after a week of digging, I realized there was nothing to find. "You're clean, brother." Almost boring. "So what did you tell her?" "The truth, that you are exactly who you appeared to be. Solid, loyal, no skeletons." How'd she take that? Lloyd finally looked up. That's when I realized who she really was. She wasn't disappointed. She was pissed. Like she was mad that you weren't cheating on her. I processed that. Rachel had been hoping I was dirty. Would have made her job easier. "I figured you didn't need to know," Lloyd continued, before I realized what she was planning. Which was? Complete erasure. Bank accounts, property transfers, character assassination. She's been telling people you have anger issues, that she was scared you'd clean out her accounts when you got back. Mrs. Patterson barely looked at me today. Probably heard the whole story. Rachel's been thorough with the neighbors. I took a long pull from my beer. The pieces were falling into place like a puzzle I should have solved months ago. "She played it perfect," I said. "Wait until I'm deployed. Use my own power of attorney against me, control the narrative while I'm stuck overseas. Eli, I'm sorry. I should have. Now I know. I set my beer down. So let's begin. Lloyd straightened up. I could see the old investigator's spark in his eyes. What do you need? Everything. Financial records, property transfers, communications. I want to know every move she made since I left. Consider it done. Rachel thought she'd won the first battle. Maybe she had. Time to start the war. Lloyd called me at 600 hours 3 days later. Military habit. We both still thought in military time. Found something, he said. You're not gonna like it. Tell me. Rachel didn't just use your POA to move money. She moved it into a personal trust, sole beneficiary. But here's the kicker. She co-signed a property deal with some guy named David Langford. Who's David Langford? Mortgage officer at Virginia Commonwealth Bank. They bought a house together in Williamsburg. Closed 2 weeks before you got back. I sat in my motel room, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. Rachel had been planning this for months, maybe longer. There's more, Lloyd continued. The property's in both their names, but the down payment came from your joint account. 60 grand. My money bought her love nest. Gets better. Langford's got an ex-wife named Kara Denton. Nasty divorce. Happened last year. She might be willing to talk. Set it up. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a Starbucks across from a woman who looked like she'd been through a blender. Kara Denton, 38. Dark circles under her eyes, hands that shook slightly when she reached for her coffee. You're Eli, she said. Not a question. You're Kara. Your wife's boyfriend ruined my life. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through screenshots. Want to see how? She showed me bank transfers, wire records, email chains between David and Rachel going back 8 months. One email made my blood run cold. Rachel writing to David. Eli's the ghost who still pays the bills. He doesn't even know he's funding his own replacement. I'm not doing this for you, Kara said, putting her phone away. I'm doing it because they screwed more than you. What do you want? Justice. David forged documents during our divorce, used fake signatures to hide assets. I've got proof, but nobody would listen because he had connections at the bank. She slid a manila folder across the table. Real estate contracts, wire transfer records, and something special. An email where your wife laughs about how you'll never check the POA expiration date. I opened the folder. Financial documents, property records, email printouts, everything organized like a military briefing folder. How long have you been collecting this? Since David left me for her. I knew they'd get sloppy eventually. At the bottom of the pile was a property deed. David and Rachel's names, dated 2 weeks before my return. But something looked off about David's signature. This signature, I said, pointing to the document. That's not David's handwriting. I lived with the man for 6 years. That's Rachel's attempt at copying his signature. You sure? Positive. I've got samples of his real signature for comparison. 3 days later, Rachel's lawyer called. Time for the final settlement meeting. All very professional, very clean, just like Rachel wanted. I walked into the law office of Brennan and Associates downtown. Sterile waiting room, motivational prints on the walls, the smell of expensive carpet and desperation. Rachel sat next to her lawyer, Mark Brennan, mid-50s, silver hair, suit that cost more than my monthly pension. They both smiled when I walked in alone. Mr. Granger, Brennan said, standing to shake my hand. I'm glad we can resolve this amicably. Me too. We sat around a polished conference table. Brennan opened a thick file, pulled out the divorce papers I'd signed in Kuwait. Everything appears to be in order, he said. Property division as agreed, asset transfer complete. Just need to finalize a few details. Rachel hadn't said a word yet, sat there, looking satisfied, like a cat that caught a canary. There is one issue, Brennan continued. This asset list you included with your signed papers. We've determined it's legally invalid. How so? Your power of attorney expired while you were deployed. Any documentation executed after that date has no legal standing. Rachel smiled. First time I'd seen her look genuinely happy in months. So we're back to the original division as filed, Brennan said, unless you have objections. I was about to respond when the conference room door opened. Kara Denton walked in, quiet as a church mouse, 2 folders in her hands. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking the empty chair next to me. Rachel's face went white. Brennan looked confused. I'm sorry, who are you? He asked. Kara Denton. I'm here as a witness. We weren't expecting. You forgot one thing, Kara said, looking directly at Rachel. I never deleted my emails. She opened the first folder, pulled out a real estate contract. This is a property deed signed by David Lankford and Rachel Granger, dated 3 weeks before the divorce filing. Brennan took the document, examined it. His expression shifted from confused to concerned. This shows joint property ownership established before divorce proceedings began. That's right, Kara said. She opened the second folder. And this shows wire transfers from Eli's joint account funding the down payment. More documents across the table. Bank records, transfer receipts, email, printouts. There's also this, Kara continued, pulling out a signature comparison sheet. David's real signature versus the one on that property deed. Rachel finally spoke up. She's lying. She's obsessed with David. This is revenge because he left her. For you, Kara said calmly. He left me for you, using money stolen from your husband. Brennan studied the signature comparison, then the emails, then the bank records. His face had gone from concern to alarmed. Mrs. Granger, this signature appears to be forged, and if these emails are authentic, they are, Kara said. Complete metadata, server timestamps, everything admissible. This could be perjury, document fraud, possibly conspiracy. Rachel's confidence cracked like ice in summer. She's making this up. I'm calling my forensic document expert, Brennan said, reaching for his phone. Rachel looked at me for the first time since Kuwait. Not with satisfaction anymore. With fear. Games changed, I said quietly. The conference room suddenly felt very small. 2 weeks later, we were sitting in Judge Patricia Morrison's courtroom. Not the outcome any of us had planned when this started. Brennan had withdrawn as Rachel's counsel after reviewing Kara's evidence. Conflict of interest, he'd said. Translation, he didn't want to go down with the ship. Rachel's new lawyer was Tom Sullivan. Public defender type, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Probably took the case because nobody else would touch it. I sat with my attorney, Mike Chin. No relation to anyone, just a solid guy Lloyd had recommended. Former military lawyer who understood how these things worked. Judge Morrison was old school, 70s, gray hair pulled back tight, no tolerance for nonsense. She'd been handling family court for 20 years. This is a modification hearing, she announced. Property division dispute arising from irregularities in power of attorney usage. Sullivan stood up first. Your Honor, my client maintains that Mr. Granger's original asset documentation was invalid due to expired POA. The property transfers were executed legally under proper authority. Rachel sat next to him, hands folded. She'd found her composure again, probably figured she could still talk her way out of this. Mr. Chen? Judge Morrison said. My lawyer stood. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that Mrs. Granger engaged in systematic fraud, using forged documents and misrepresented authority. Proceed with evidence. Sullivan went first. He was actually competent, which worried me. He presented Rachel's POA documentation, highlighted the expiration dates, argued that everything she'd done was technically legal. Mrs. Granger acted within her authority as specified in the original power of attorney agreement, he said. The asset transfers were properly executed and documented. Judge Morrison reviewed the paperwork. She was nodding along with Sullivan's argument. This wasn't going the way I'd hoped. The court recognizes the POA expiration issue, she said. Mr. Chen, what's your response? My lawyer called Kara to the stand. She walked up with a folder, same calm demeanor she'd had in the law office. Mrs. Denton, please describe your relationship to this case. David Langford is my ex-husband. He and Mrs. Granger purchased property together using funds transferred from Mr. Granger's account. And you have evidence of this? Kara opened her folder. Bank transfers, property records, and email communications between Mrs. Granger and Mr. Langford dating back 8 months. She handed over the documents. Judge Morrison reviewed them, her expression unreadable. These appear to show planning that preceded the divorce filing, the judge said. Yes, Your Honor, including discussions about hiding assets and timing the divorce to maximize Mrs. Granger's financial position. Sullivan objected. Hearsay evidence, Your Honor. These emails could be fabricated. The emails include complete metadata and server verification, Chen responded. Forensic analysis confirms authenticity. Judge Morrison was still reading, taking her time. Rachel was starting to look nervous again. There's one more piece of evidence, Kara said quietly. She pulled out another document, single-page, printed email. This is from Mrs. Granger to Mr. Langford, sent while Mr. Granger was still deployed. Judge Morrison took the paper, read it silently. Her eyebrows went up. Would you read this aloud for the record, Mrs. Denton? Kara cleared her throat. Quote, he won't check the POA. Even if he does, it still scans. Military types don't question paperwork if it looks official. We're clear to move the money. End quote. The courtroom went dead silent. Rachel's face had gone white. Sullivan was frantically shuffling through his papers like he could find something to save this. Your Honor, Sullivan said, this appears to be taken out of context. The context seems clear to me, Judge Morrison said coldly. Mrs. Denton, do you have additional evidence? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Langford is prepared to testify. That's when David Langford stood up from the gallery. I hadn't even noticed him come in. Tall guy, nervous energy, sweating through his suit. Your Honor, I need to speak. Approach the bench. David walked up, Sullivan trailing behind him, looking panicked. Mr. Langford, you understand you're not represented by counsel? Yes, ma'am. I want to tell the truth. Judge Morrison had him sworn in on the spot. David sat in the witness chair, wouldn't look at Rachel. Mr. Langford, describe your relationship with Mrs. Granger. We've been involved for about 10 months. She approached me about moving her assets before her husband returned from deployment. Did you assist with these transfers? Yes. She had power of attorney documentation. I processed the transfers through the bank. And the property purchase. David's voice got quieter. She wanted to buy a house together, said her husband would never find out. Did you sign the property documents? No. Sullivan was on his feet. Objection, Your Honor. She forged my name, David said loudly. I'm not going down for her. The courtroom erupted. Rachel was pulling on Sullivan's jacket, whispering frantically. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order. Mr. Langford, you're saying Mrs. Granger forged your signature? Yes, ma'am. On the property deed. I never signed it. She said it would be easier that way, less paperwork. Rachel finally spoke up. That's not true. He's lying because... Mrs. Granger, you'll have your chance to respond, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Langford, continue. She planned everything, waited until he was deployed, used his POA to move the money, then filed for divorce. She said military guys never fight back legally. I stayed perfectly still, no reaction. Just listened to my marriage get dissected like a training exercise. Judge Morrison deliberated for 20 minutes. When she came back, her expression was granite. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds that Mrs. Granger misused power of attorney authority, engaged in document fraud, and attempted to conceal assets during divorce proceedings. The judgment was swift and thorough. POA transfers declared invalid and reversed. Property ownership redivided according to actual contributions. Pension transfers restored to original beneficiary. Rachel fined $12,000 and referred to the state auditor for investigation. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not victory, just clarity. Within a week, Kara's screenshots were circulating through our old neighborhood. Social media does what courts can't. It spreads the truth faster than lies can cover it up. Rachel's friends stopped taking her calls. The real estate office where she worked quietly let her go. Even Mrs. Patterson waved at me when I drove by. The community had rendered its own verdict. Rachel had played a perfect game, right up until she didn't. I didn't go back to the house. The court said I could. Property was mine again, legally speaking. But walking back into that place felt like sleeping in a graveyard. Instead, I found a one-bedroom apartment 20 minutes outside town. Small complex, quiet neighbors, nobody who knew my story or cared to learn it. The apartment came furnished, basic stuff, couch, bed, kitchen table for two. Everything I needed, nothing I didn't. Simple, clean, like starting over without the baggage. 3 weeks after the judgment, a package showed up at my door. No return address, but I recognized Rachel's handwriting on the label. Inside, a cardboard box filled with scraps, old insurance papers with my name scratched out. A dog leash, frayed at the edges, our wedding invitation, torn in half. No note, just scraps. Just proof she thought I'd disappear. I set the box by the trash, then thought better of it. Kept the dog leash. That weekend I drove to the county animal shelter. Place smelled like disinfectant and hope. Volunteers bustling around, trying to make the best of a hard situation. "Looking for anything specific?" asked the volunteer at the front desk. Young woman, probably college age. Name tag said Jenny. Something quiet, I said. Low maintenance. She walked me through the kennels. Dogs of every size and temperament, most of them bouncing around looking for attention. Barking, tail wagging, the whole show. At the end of the row, one kennel was silent. Gray and brown mix, maybe 8 years old. Missing part of his left ear. Sitting in the corner, watching everything but not expecting anything. "That's Buck," Jenny said. "He's been here 4 months. Previous owner, well, let's just say Buck's had a rough time." "What's wrong with him?" "Nothing's wrong with him. He's just careful. Doesn't bark much. Doesn't like to be touched right away. Takes time to trust." I looked at Buck. He looked back. Neither of us moved. "How long before you have to?" I didn't finish the question. "He's got time. We don't give up on the quiet ones." I filled out the paperwork. Background check, reference calls, the whole process. Military precision applied to pet adoption. 2 days later, I brought Buck home. He spent the first week sleeping in the corner of the living room, as far from me as possible. Ate his food when I wasn't looking. Went outside when necessary. Came back in without a fuss. No demands, no drama, just presence. By the second week, he'd moved closer to the couch. By the third, he was sleeping next to my bed. Never did bark much. Still doesn't like strangers touching him. But he knows routine, follows orders, and doesn't ask questions he doesn't need answered. We understand each other. Evening walks have become our thing. Buck stays close but not clinging. I stay alert but not paranoid. Two creatures who've learned that survival sometimes looks like surrender. But it's not. Rachel thought silence meant surrender. She thought distance meant defeat. She never learned what I do in silence. I plan. I prepare. I endure. And when the time comes, I execute. 25 years in the Army taught me patience. Buck's teaching me something else. Sometimes the best victories are the quiet ones. The ones where you don't disappear. You just become something better.